Perfect.
Hello, everybody. We're live. We made it. So sorry for the delay. Anyone watching live today, just got stuck in some traffic on the way home from Cleveland. But I made it. It was well worth the lot of extra travel. But it was a lot of it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. How did you guys? I mean, Disc and I was with you last night. But Eric, what did you think of the show last night?
I thought it was incredible. Throughout the night, I kept sort of comparing it in one way or the other to the 2022 Cleveland show and even the 2020 sort of single set Cleveland show, both of which were in March at the Agora. Very different than last year's show, but I mean, I loved it. Obviously, there's plenty to say, but the first set in particular was full of highlights, and it was blowing me away. It was a great show, and I've been so eager to see them, especially after the Cap run and especially after last fall tour. It was really, really good to see them.
Awesome. Disc, what about you? When was the last time you saw Goose?
Before last night?
Yeah.
Was New Year's in Cincy.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
You're a Shohio guy.
I am a Shohio guy. Shohio for the win. It was fantastic. Eric, I was at last year's Cleveland show too, so definitely came in with a ton of expectations, following that show.
I think I said this to you last night, but I think the Agora is a much better venue when it's not sold out. Last year was not, and last night was very cramped.
Yeah.
I was down in the pit for the first set, and then I moved around in the second set, but it was tight up there for sure. Just trying to hold a drink even was tough, but it was good.
Well, it was great. And let's talk about this opening All I Need, because wow, what a way to open the show. This is that patient jamming that they've been doing this tour so far. And they got right into it. This first jam, they hit that minor key, and this was I tweeted last night, this was the most swagger I've seen from Rick since the Goose Miss Pancakes. He was just out there like hitting the wah pedal, just ripping all over the place. But yeah, so Diskin, what were you for the first part of this at least?
Yeah, so going into the show, I think we were all anticipating there to be another, 30-minute type jam, specifically following the last couple shows, the Born and then the Echo before that. And you could just tell, right away as soon as they're about to launch into it. Peter even does this thing where he'll sit down at the keys, he moves his mic away, and he's like, I am ready, and it's just it's chill, it's relaxed, and you're on your way to something special. And I mean, it was absolutely incredible. I'm sure we're gonna dive into it a whole bunch, but that second half of the jam was just picture perfect.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, to your guys' point, when the first jam segment really started, those were the words coming to mind. Things like patience, and I kept thinking of the word authority too. It's been fun watching this band over the last couple of years, as we can all attest. And as this jam started, and as a lot of other recent jams have started, there's just this authority on stage, and this, I mean, swagger is the right word. They're getting into a headspace, and you can tell they're allowing themselves to listen to each other a lot more as time goes on too. And I think that's where that second jam started to emerge, is a great example of that. And yeah, I mean, like you guys were saying, the second half of this jam is, I
amazing.
Couldn't believe it. I was just pleased as punch.
What was so cool from where we were on the balcony, one thing I love about the Agora is the sight line from the balcony, how you feel like you're not directly on top of the band, but you can see perfectly everything that they're doing, and you can see the front of the crowd. So you kind of get it all. The lights you can see from up there perfectly well. So it was great. But what was so cool is, you can tell they go back into that regular All I Need solo, and then it feels like, they're building back into the final chorus. And it was like, wow, that was a great, first jam. We were talking to our friend Jeff, Captain Incredible, who, we were like, this feels like it was short enough that maybe they're going to go for the second jam on this. It could happen here. And then, as they're building in, Rick just kind of looks at Peter and Ben, and instead of cueing the ending, just shakes his head and then just keeps going. And we're like, okay, like, we're doing, there's more improv. And so again, they've been doing this thing where, like, I felt like at the Cap, the first night of the Cap run, they focused on dark jamming in the first set and light jamming in the second set. So in this jam, it was, you had that darker first jam in the minor key, and then the second jam was just major key, pretty beautiful, nice honeybee tease from Peter. A little foreshadowing happened, but it was great.
It was one of those jams that sounds almost composed in the moment. And it was almost the word that kept coming to mind for me was like symphonic. Even as I was like dancing, I was kind of like directing the band like this. Like it was just for like 6 minutes. I mean, every note that Rick was playing was perfect. All of his fills were spot on. It had that slow build, and it sounded like one of those unique pre-composed pieces of music that's just so hard to capture in an improvisational, setting. It was fantastic. I have an affinity for like the first set or the first song of a show that just launches, and it's almost as if like at the end of it would have been enough Dainu, like if they had just played All I Need, I could have, got back into my car. I could have left the show. I could have drove home, and it would have been worth, the 3-hour drive down for it. It was incredible. Everything after that All I Need was gravy on top.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the exact same thing. Like, got your money's worth right then and there, and it was incredible because the sort of that major key build was, again, we've already said it a couple times, but very patient. Rick was leading this, and there was like a 60-second stretch where it's starting to build heavier and heavier, and he was almost doing like a series of like power chords, basically. It was pretty straightforward stuff, but he was doing it and then sliding back into some lead work and some little soloing over everything. That little section there, I'm desperate to re-listen to, because it was, I mean, we had come out of that little spacey section. Now we're moving into building this energy back up, and it was just so intense. It was just so well done.
And I love what they've been doing with these huge jams lately. That's now 2 Cleveland shows in a row that have opened with a 20+ minute jam. So I'm very happy with this All I Need. It was absolutely incredible. Definitely up there on the playlist. I'm not going to Vickers it and immediately proclaim it Jam of the Year. But it's up there. It's
contender.
It's good.
Yeah.
I'm excited for these boards to drop from the whole weekend, and be able to revisit everything, figure out where things are going to wind up. But anyway, so from the All I Need, they move into the Whales. This song has really grown on me. The more I've seen it live, even nice Secret Agent Man started off. Little tease thrown in there. There were so many footnotes on the set list last night. I was wondering if I was going to have to shrink the font size on like the lgoose.net graphic that I posted this morning. Like I didn't know if it was all going to fit. It all fit, but barely. It's a very full footnote section. But yeah, so Secret Agent Man tease to start off the Whales, but the Whales was great. And then Caution, great cover. My first time seeing it live. First time they played it since October. So good to see pop up again. What did you guys think of these 2 songs?
Yeah, Whales, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it had a little extra mustard. I was actually going out after All I Need. I was in the line for another beer, and it was one of those songs where I could hear the jam clearly, and with that little extra mustard, I was kind of like dancing, while I was waiting there. And
yeah, of course.
Didn't care, whatever. It was
if you're in the beer line during the show and you're not dancing, like, what do you do?
And then my thoughts on Caution, and I think I might have even said this to you, like Ryan, yesterday, is just that whenever they're playing like reggae tunes and reggae covers, you could just tell that it's like Rick and Ben in particular too are almost these like reggae savants. They're just so great at keeping and maintaining that pocket, getting the feel, and I love Caution too. It's a fantastic cover, so it's great.
Yeah, that was a cool surprise. One thing that really stood out to me in Caution and in a couple points later in the second set was like Rick's arpeggio work. I mean, there were a couple real nice just, arpeggio flares in that cover, and it was super fun. I mean, the Whales, certainly not in my top 5 favorite songs necessarily, but what I liked is that it was a sort of a cool off landing pad from that first jam. And one thing I wanted to mention is that like at the end of pretty much every song, and certainly every big jam in the show, there was a guy behind me when I was up front in the pit. He was maybe 50, 55 years old or so, and he kept yelling out, "Holy mackerel!" And he was just having the time of his life. And so coming off that All I Need, the Whales did it fit real nice in the 2 spot. I guess I'll put it that way. And I always love the Peter songs; they're great. But yeah, Caution was real fun, real unexpected. I thought just a great tune.
Yeah, great. And then I think one of the best segments of the show here. I don't remember off the top of my head. And I'm gonna look before I completely butcher it. What Jeff Captain Incredible dubbed it, because I really liked what he called it, the Cleveland Califecta. The Cleveland Califecta that we got last night. Jive 1, Cali Magic, Jive 2, Jive Lee. This was awesome. The first time I'd seen a full performance of the Triptych or Jivefecta or whatever you want to call it, all 3 together. First Jive Lee in 16 shows, which is a long gap for that one. Man, it was amazing. And the 6th time they have performed all 3 in the same show ever.
I was going to ask you. It was a hard stat to try to find, so 4. I appreciate your...
I only knew 4 off the top of my head. Thank you to Dean, a.k.a. Goose Trivia, on Twitter for doing the deep website diving to find the other 2 from early 2019. But the Cleveland Califecta, it's a thing. We're calling it that. Thank you, Jeff, for the name. But man, there was a cool moment in Jive 1 during Rick's solo where they have those jazzy interludes built into the song. This is the first time I've heard them kind of do jazz for a little bit during one of the solos, and that was really cool. Spuds and Peter got into that vibe.
I'm glad you called that out, because some of the pre-show music was sort of like traditional, like jazz. So as soon as they got into Jive and started Jive 1 and we're doing that, I was remarking and thinking back to the pre-show music.
Now that you mentioned the pre-show music, if anyone is curious what playlists they're using, they are on Spotify. Awesome. I will tweet. I'll tweet links to them from the AAT account after the broadcast today. If anyone is interested in checking out Goose's pre-show and set break music playlists. But anyway, sorry, Eric. The Jive 1.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I like the jives in general really weren't on my radar. I had a little list of songs I was hoping to catch last night, and I do love Jive 2. We'll talk about that in a second, but Jive 1, I mean, these are just such fun songs. Some of the first ones that I really got into that got me into the band, especially 1 and 2. But I'm glad you guys, like you said, you mentioned the little sort of jazzy interludes there, and what I was thinking in the moment was just briefly how cool it was to contrast that against Caution. You're coming off this really cool reggae song that they did really well, and then they're sort of moving into this whole other kind of frame of mind, and it worked really well, and it tees up this whole last segment of the set, which I mean, I already thought I got my money's worth with the All I Need, like we were saying,
and then this was
and this really, like, looking back on it when all was said and done, this little segment here, the Cleveland Califecta, it was my favorite part of the show. I mean, it was unbelievable. And especially, I just thought Peter on the keys, on the clavs, really was shining. I mean, he was
clav tweet, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
clav
out of control.
Tweet. It was there. It was awesome. Jive 2 just continues to kill. I forget what song was it where they did the On Bass Tonight, Trevor Bass. I couldn't remember when in the show that happened. I think it was in the first set, right?
It was.
My brain was. I'm honestly surprised I had as much energy as I did last night. My brain was not functional by the end.
They called it out. Whoever was doing the Reddit thread did call that out, and it was somewhere around here.
Yeah, but anyway, so this Jive 2 was amazing as always. It was, and the Lee, really got out there. There was some, we had the group chat was very excited about the Feel It Now teases that they kind of got into in the Lee. Man, it was was a great Lee. Great way to make a return after a long gap on the song.
Yeah. The Lee was straight gas as soon as they went into it. And as soon as they went into it,
well, everyone was so
yeah.
excited too.
It was
because it's like, wait, we're an hour and 20 minutes into the set and they haven't played Lee in a while. And then they got like, because it really felt like they were ending the set after Jive 2. I was doing the set list thread. I had end set typed and ready to go. And then they went into Lee. And yeah, everyone was very, very excited.
I just like turned to everybody in the section, just like, we did it. We got the trifecta. And then just proceeded to dance. There's always a moment in the show where like I completely burn out my legs at a Goose show where I'm just like toast. And I know like I'm going to be feeling my Achilles like the next day. And for me, it was during the Jive Lee. I mean, just as soon as the first note started into the end, I'm like, I'm leaving it all out there. I don't know what else is going to happen the rest of the show, but I'm going to be completely burnt out. And
there we go.
It was a special moment to get that trifecta, and it's
yeah. And they stretched out the Lee. It was super groovy. Everyone was feeling it. I mean, one thing I would say is, as tight as it was up front, the vibe in the crowd was very good. I mean, sometimes I guess it all depends on where you end up. You might end up around some talkers or whatever ends up happening. Everyone was, I mean, it was just a great scene. People were making friends instantly before the show. This moment, like you're saying, as we go into Lee, was a really cool moment because a lot of folks up there are obviously tuned in and they're sort of aware of the meaning of this move in the set list. One thing I did want to flag, and Ryan, right before we jumped on here, I read your piece.
Thank you.
Because, and you point out something very interesting that I don't think I caught exactly, but toward the end of Jive 2, right when they're about to go back into the ending there, this unbelievable bass bomb ripples through the room.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was Trevor like hitting the brown note at first.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I did want to mention, actually, thank you for reminding me, during Jive 1, I don't think anybody in the room was having a better time than Jeb. I don't know who he was looking at off stage, but he was just like, he was just exuberant, he was punching the gong, like there's a lot going on. But yeah, these bombs that he's got on his sample pad thing, he was using them liberally last night.
Yeah, and I don't think I fully even caught it in the moment, but the effect, like looking back on it, and I can't wait to listen to it again, the effect was, I mean, it was very unusual. And the one in Jive 2, it felt like the whole place was exploding, or like a portal was opening up, and people just spontaneously just shouting out and laughing. I mean, it was so out of control. And then of course, there's a whole bunch of them throughout the night, but that one, I mean, that moment right there when they go back into the ending of Jive 2 was like one of the best moments of the night. It was unbelievable.
How long was that set?
Like an hour and 35 minutes.
It was insane.
Like, yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that was the best set of the tour so far.
Love
pretty.
that.
But yeah, what a way to end it. But yes, Jeb is on record as the Deuce being his favorite jive. He's a smart man. He knows what the best jive is. But yeah, a lot of bombs happening at the end of the set there. And then, so then we come up for set 2. We open up with Drive, and we get into Take On Me. Did not see this coming. Drive. Not my preferred drive, but it's fine. This Take On Me was so much fun. It's like a classic Goose jam, just like driving dance groove. Rick absolutely ripping it. Dave's energy guide everywhere. Which Diskin and I, as soon as Rick did it, like we looked at each other and we were like, ah!
It was shout out to my buddy, by the way, Jeremy Pappas, who I was sitting next to, and who called the Take On Me like right away, and I was like, no way.
I thought it was Love Is a Battlefield, and I was like, they played this 3 shows ago. What are they doing?
Yeah, and but it was so good, and the cover first and foremost is fantastic. I love just like Peter's textures that he adds to it. They really nail it as a cover. I think it works really, really well. Especially under the auspice of all the different 80s covers that they do. I think Take On Me is definitely up there, and I forgot about it, quite honestly, that they do it. It's been so long. But the jam itself was was amazing. And, me and my fish crew like buddies, we are big Deg fiends, and so whenever it's like it's an unmistakable sort of territory that one gets into. So first you're in like Deg territory, and then you wait and you listen, and then boom. And yeah, I was geeking out with Ryan when it happened. It just seems like it's like such a specific type of thing to get into.
Right.
It seems like it has to be intentional. Like
it apparently was not. That's just another lick to Rick. I did get confirmation from a member of the crew that it was not intentional. That Coach asked Rick for me whether it was Dave's energy guide or not, and it was not. So it unfortunately does not get noted. But
conspiracy theorist Diskin thinks that he had a conversation with Trey, and they both agree that it's part of the inside joke to always tell people it's unintentional.
Love it.
But it was there. Eric, what did you think of the Take on Me?
I thought it was great. Yeah, I mean, I guess first of all, love Drive opening the set. I thought it was fun. Love Peter on the guitar, and it was just
Always.
It was nice to at least get that in there and didn't get taken for a ride necessarily, but it was, I love that song. And yeah, Take On Me was a total surprise, super fun. Everybody's dancing. Rick's hitting those high notes. The crowd's hitting the high notes. It was great. And then what I liked is like right after the song itself, I mean, they pretty much just immediately took a left turn back into like dark, groovy jamming. And yeah, it was great. And then, I mean, at this point, it just, they were in such a groove for such a sustained amount of time on this jam, and they were just locked in. It was like propulsive. It was very steady, groovy jamming, and it's hard to find a lot of words for it beyond that because they were just locked in at that point. And really, the mood in that jam kind of set the tone for the whole set, I feel like.
One of my favorite aspects of like a really great Goose show is like it's not just when they're jamming, but they have different types of jams throughout the evening. And so if you take the All I Need jam and that sort of like major core jam, and then juxtapose that to the Take On Me jam, like very, very different. So we got a lot of different flavors of Goose jamming last night, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. And then they go into Mist here, which I think when Mist started, it was kind of like, okay, it's going to be like party good time set, which was like, it's okay. But not that I had a bad time. I just happened to be a crabby person who only likes jams. But this Mist was awesome. I mean, I love this song. It kind of works anywhere in the show. They get into the slow jam part, and Trevor took a solo, and then Peter took a solo, and then Rick carried them beautifully to the ending. Another beautiful moment in Trevor bass. I keep meaning to bring this up, and I keep forgetting to say it over the last 20 minutes that we've been live. But I feel like for a lot of the shows they've played over the last couple of weeks, it's been the rhythm section have been the MVPs. It's either been Spuds, it's either been Trevor. Last night, it was Rick. It was the Rick show last night. He was out there at the front of everything. But this Mist was amazing. The auto-tune sounding really good these days. I think he's got a newer auto-tune, but it's sounding great.
It was great. I think it was during Into the Mist too, and maybe I'm mistaken. You can point it out if I am, but there was like this one specific move that Peter did where like he was on the guitar and then he like hopped over to play and it was like this like incredible athletic acrobatic guitar to piano switch. And I want to go back and rewatch it for that specific moment, but I was amazed by it.
There's a lot of that in Arrow, like going back and forth from like guitar to synth to clav to piano, back to guitar, back to piano. Like that's a big one.
Yeah, I love seeing, the little solos there, the spotlight on Trevor and Peter. I mean, I hadn't seen that kind of thing before. Just kind of a fun addition to in the middle of a jam, taking a break, backing up and letting Trevor do his thing. I think that I feel like you guys might have talked about this during one of the Philadelphia episodes, but I was very locked into Trevor, especially in the second set, because by this point I had moved further back and on to his side of the theater at that point. And I don't know. I mean, he's doing a lot of very interesting things over there, and it's been really cool to watch him all five of them really, but just watch him develop over the last year. And again, like I said, I kept comparing this to last year's Cleveland show, and there were a lot of great moments late in the second set there where Trevor was really shining and just doing really cool major key stuff. But here he was again. I mean, it was so it was cool to see him take that solo and sort of have that moment there.
It's the year, Trevor.
Yeah.
I'd say
Neil's a good point. The true test of whether the auto-tune is working or not will be the next time they play Dark Horse. That is historically the worst sounding auto-tune. So fingers crossed that when that does happen, that it sounds great. From there, we get a beautiful moment. I thought, this is not, I just want to preface this by saying this is not my favorite placement for Honeybee mid-second set, but I do really, really love the gesture that the band did for Coach. They bought him a new rain stick, which he had no idea about. He actually apparently, when they audibled Honeybee, or I'm assuming they were planning on doing it, but they didn't want to put it on the set list and have Coach know it was coming. But apparently when Peter was like, okay, we're going to play Honeybee, like come on stage, rain stick, like Coach was freaking out. He was like, I left the rain stick at home. Like, I don't. And so, but they brought him out. They were like, Coach, and gave him his new rain stick, which was very nice. He looked very happy.
I love Honeybee. It always brings me back to like a specific point in time. When they were doing some of their streams during COVID. I remember there was one, it was the first time I ever heard Honeybee. Maybe they debuted it then.
It was debuted at Goose 2019, I want to say.
Oh, okay. But anyways, it always brings me back, and it was beautiful. It was a touching moment. It was a really nice moment. And I love the jam. Again, like there's so many of these like more sort of like standard jams that they've been doing all seem to have like a little bit of extra shine to them, and same with Honeybee last night. It was great.
I always any complaints I have about Honeybee are always like it starts and I'm like, oh, Honeybee right now not great, and then like 2 minutes later I'm like, oh no, I actually really love this song, and then by the time Rick is like destroying the ending solo, I'm like,
I mean that arpeggio work from him again, especially in Honeybee, even more so than Caution. Actually, he was just doing really, really great fills up and down the guitar neck, and this is going to be another like 30-second section that I kind of immediately go back to when this board goes up. But yeah, I mean, for all the sort of sentimental reasons, I really liked it. The whole room clearly loved it, and the one thing I would also say is they did play it at the March 2020 show, and this was obviously right before the pandemic. They're opening for Pigeons. They played, it was maybe a 5 or 6 song set or something, but I remember Honeybee kind of standing out at that time just because it's kind of a memorable melody and just kind of a groovy song, and it's interesting to see how it's developed over the years. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, Ryan, it always tends to blossom into a really, really cool Rick-led kind of moment.
Yeah.
It also makes me happy because you go to all these Goose shows and you always see the little honeybees, that they'll pass around and everybody's wearing them. And
a lot of them last night.
Yeah, a lot of them last night, and they actually played it. So I was happy for everybody.
Yeah.
Who got their little honeybee.
And then so we got a Madhavan fake out after this, but the Madhavan fake out was one note. And I don't know if it was intentional, but it was enough to convince me to hit send on the Madhavan tweet.
No, you did not.
Yeah. I think I deleted it before people were able to screenshot and, make fun of me for it. But, I take responsibility for my set list mistakes, unlike a certain guy whose name starts with N, who likes to blame the band or other people. I can say that because he's not on the pod today. But yes, certain guy whose name is N. That was a mean fake out. I was really hoping for the Madhavan. You know, if anybody who's been following our recaps the last few days, we have been saying, I think for the last 3 shows, there's gonna be a huge Madhavan tonight. So I'm now gonna say tomorrow night in Athens, there's gonna be a huge Madhavan. Yeah. But sorry, I didn't even say what they actually did play. They played Arrow. It was great. There was a Streets of Cairo tease in it, which is, you know, I love more teases. But yeah, what did you guys think of the fake out and the Arrow, Eric?
Well, yeah, Arrow was another one that I haven't seen live yet, and it tends to bring out some really cool, you know, big time jams, and this one was, you know, such a great kind of summary of really the whole night. I felt like you've got those anthemic sort of chorus parts of the song, obviously, that they kept coming back to, some cool vocal moments, but just the tempo of the song is so good, and it allows for so much. Again, I go back to that word propulsive, just propulsive, groovy jamming for, whatever it was, maybe 20 minutes or so. It was great.
I definitely thought they were going into Madhavan too. Turned to my buddy Madhavan. So I got faked out.
I screamed it.
I love Arrow. Arrow, like, to me, is always one of their more underrated big dogs that are out there. I think it just in terms of the composed part, even prior to getting into the jam, it's always a raucous, fun time. And I thought this jam was great too. I will say, like, as soon as they launched into Arrow, you knew that they were going to close the night with it. And it was such a heater of a show that honestly, at that point in time, I wasn't expecting like a big, long, huge monster end jam, which I was actually happy, even for unselfish reasons, that they didn't go into Madhavan. I kind of had this feeling that regardless of what they were going to go into for their second set closer, it wasn't going to be a monster. But this Arrow was super fun. And nothing, particularly, unique or special about it, but it definitely kept off the night really great for me.
Yeah, it was a good way to close out. And then Shama Encore was interesting. I'm really surprised that they audibled this instead of the T that was on the set list. Sunday night, 4th show of the tour, no T yet, and it was on the set list. Feels like this would have been the perfect time to drop a nice, Jive Goose approved 12-minute hot T encore. But they went Shama instead, which, it's a fun song, always a good time. I probably would have rathered a T in this situation. But that's not just because I had it for 7 points on fantasy.
It was, at first, it was cool to get such a classic with Shama. I know a lot of folks are out there, chasing it. I'm not necessarily chasing it. I heard it first and I was like, oh, but I wasn't too enthused, but settled in, happy to get it. And then I thought the jam was really fun. I'm always gonna like picture, I have this like stark memory of like Captain, who was a couple rows in front of me, was like dancing, and he just had like the biggest smile on his face, and he was just having the best time ever. And I'm like, yes. And it was just one of those, solid, great friend moments that you have at the show that doesn't really, come back when you listen to the boards.
Awesome. Yeah, people were loving it, that's for sure. I thought it was a nice fun cap to everything. I thought it was interesting too, and maybe I'm just conflating these things, but last year in the encore they played Whip It, sort of another kind of like fun, silly cover to end the night.
True.
Not the same thing at all, really, but yeah, kind of an interesting choice. And then once the photo of the set list is out there, it was kind of curious. That kind of switcheroo. Did I see Arcadia on the set list too?
Wisteria was on there as well.
Wisteria,
yeah, man. I got a set list after the show, and I was immediately like, man, like, they cut Wisteria, they cut T, they cut. I don't know. The Arcadia was definitely like an extra song. If for somehow like all I need ended up being 8 minutes, and they like barely extended any of the jives. But could you imagine like an hour and 50-minute long set with an Arcadia at the end there? But it's good. And, we got 5 shows left on this first kind of leg of spring tour. Are you guys going to any of the shows next week or later in the tour?
No, I got a big my go-to Goose buddies are all doing the Ryman. So shout out to Kurz, Yoni, and Pappas who are all going there. I'm going to miss out on it. I'm going to be down in Florida for a golf trip. But
that sounds terrible.
I know. I'm going to try to make Chicago. So 50-50, which means that I will almost certainly be there.
Nice.
But I have that penciled in, not penned in yet.
Yeah, I know. Well, just as a side note, I was out golfing yesterday, and it was getting late in the day and getting fairly close to showtime. So I was kind of racing up the highway to get to the show last night.
You and me both.
Nice 1-2 punch. No, I mean, as far as I mean, at least here, I've got a 9-month-old, so traveling's a little
Nice.
tough these days. But what's nice is we've got Columbus and Garrettsville, that festival coming up. And
Resonance, yeah.
Yeah, like that. Nelson Ledges, where Resonance is, that's a fun, wild place, and 2 nights of Goose there is going to be incredible and out of control and super fun. So having those coming on down the pike is going to be great. And I'll be in Detroit later in the year. I mean, it's a jam-packed year. It's going to be sweet.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what happens over the next couple nights, because obviously we're 4 shows in, and there's still so many songs they haven't played yet, and now we're 4 shows in, and now we're going to see songs they've played already come back again, and so it's going to get even more difficult to predict, which is crazy. But I'm excited to see what they do in Athens tomorrow and Nashville this weekend. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they like to come into each and every single year with like guns blazing. And after last year, if you look at the Jam of the Year bracket, how many of those jams?
Goose is a March band.
This is a great call. But they're clearly out to make some moves right now, and just every night is appointment streaming. When they're playing or going to the shows, if you're even remotely there, don't miss out on it. If you're 50-50, get out and just go, because you're going to 100% catch something special if you go to any of these shows.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you both for coming on the pod today. Thank you everybody, and you guys especially, for bearing with the delay and being late and everything. But it's been fun. It was. I'm very happy that I was able to make it to the show last night, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll be back here on Wednesday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, to talk about tomorrow's show in Athens. That'll be a cool one. Very small venue. I think this might be the smallest venue of the tour, because I think it's 800-ish.
Wow.
And I think the next smallest would be the Elm in Bozeman, which is around 1,000. So that'll be cool. But anyone going down there, anyone heading to the Ryman or Birmingham this weekend, have a great time. Obviously, looking forward to couch touring. I'm going to sleep for a very long time tonight. Finally. But yeah, it's been great. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.